everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because the dance experience is an experience worth talking about. I'm your host, Truly B, and I am joined by my awesome, as always, co-host, Daryl P. Hey.
Hi.
And today we will be addressing a conversation I had with some non-artists. I only gave Daryl like the briefest of backgrounds of this conversation, so he's going to be getting all this information real time. So the question I'm posing is, when exactly is it the right time to do something? More specifically, protest. Even more specifically, to protest through the medium of dance. So this is what happened. So I'm on this call, right? And we're talking about all the things, like we're just all catching up, blah, 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 blah. So one person, I'm not going to be childish and just start name dropping because they don't be listening, but one of the people in the group occasionally does. So I'm just like, if I'm about to put people on blast, then I at least will let them know in advance usually. So one person is like, brings up how during the protests last year that there was some video, I remember seeing it, but I don't remember like watching of someone who was in the middle of the protest, how it was worded to me, that was crumping, like facing towards the police, soldiers, whatever the hell we're calling these people, whoever it was, the folks that are suited up, ready to shoot them. And so the way it was phrased in the conversation is as though, number one, it was a joke, and not like what they were doing was a joke, but how the people in the conversation were perceiving this individual using dance in the midst of this protest, which already I'm up in arms already. But I wait, I listen, I try to follow the conversation because maybe I'm jumping to conclusions. I wasn't, but I was like, maybe, you never know, let them finish. So then the next thing that was said, what that brought up to me was that I think what was taking place, and it just kind of really registered today when I was getting ready to get on here, is that it was like respectability politics. That it was like, oh, okay, well, why would you do that? That's why they don't take us serious. And I was like, whoop, skirt. Okay, so this is where I stopped the conversation. Because I'm like, I don't think that's why they don't. I think they just don't care about us. Like, I think there's a whole nother reason here that's not having anything to do with people choosing to use movement as a way of protest. I also dropped in there, I was like, can we acknowledge the fact that all of this has been traumatic? And part of my research, yay research, I need to actually get back to reading. Sidebar. But clearly I need to get back to it. But culturally speaking, movement has been used as a way of processing and dealing with trauma in the Black community. So I'm like, you're not about to sit here and tell me that if this individual has chosen, first of all, non-violent, okay, crumping is like lit as hell, but non-violent chose a non-violent way of expressing their point of view, of processing the trauma, of having a safe confrontation, because that was another thing, but remind me to bring up what they said about confrontations. You're going to then turn that around to make it seem as though it was a joke, that it was inappropriate, that they should have found another way, that wasn't the time and place. And so I asked, I was like, okay, so when is it ever the time and place? Because as an artist, my art is what I have to protest with. There are people who will say the same about speaking, that, oh, well, now's not the time. Let's not talk about that. And it's like, okay, well, when is the right time? Because people smooth be saying that all the time when we be trying to speak up about stuff like, oh, this is not the time. Let's talk about that later. Okay, when is later? When you're comfortable? Because I'm pretty sure you're never going to be comfortable with it. So, can I go ahead and let you know what the problem is so we can try to work towards a solution? I digress, though. Still up in arms. Still. So,
yeah.
Coming back.
Yeah. I agree. I think that, especially on that, especially on the terms of like, like you said, when is the right time? Like, people told Colin Kaepernick kneeling was not the right venue or the right place to show your protest, right? But it's like, I think when people don't have a voice, they don't know. I think just because people don't have a voice doesn't mean that they don't have things that they care about and would want to speak up. They just don't know how to do it. And so the only thing I think they know how to do is to like impose these rules and regulations on when you should be able to do something. But they themselves, maybe don't know what it's like to, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, when we talk about, protest and, especially the things that happened at the Capitol, only a few short days ago, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, it's until it happens to you, right? Like until you feel helpless, and not condoning these people and what they did, but it's one of those things that even in their world, if that was the moment that they felt helpless and like there was nothing else to do, then I kind of am like, maybe those are people that you really need to listen to, right? Maybe those are things that it's like, well, what is really your issue? Which sadly we already know what their issue is, and it's like, well, you just need to kind of like come to the 21st century,
please. Thanks. Like, we've been here for a brick now. Like, could y'all come on?
Right.
Join
exactly.
us here.
Join us. Right. Exactly. And it's like I don't think they. Yeah. So and when I say don't have a voice, I'd say like, I think Colin Kaepernick has a voice because of the role of the profession that he has and the amount of attention that profession have. I think us as dancers have a voice because we are able to create and produce something that people can talk about and people can see, right? But I think if you're a non-artist with no way of really expressing yourself, with maybe no, and I feel bad because you said some of these people are going to listen. So not saying that like,
right. Oh, they know how I am.
So not saying it's like, but it's one of those things too, that if they are listening and I'm kind of criticizing, saying they don't have a voice, maybe if you're like, well, I do have a voice. Well, how are you using it? How are you using that voice? And then ask yourself, however you're using that voice, if you're always constantly waiting for the right moment to use it, it's too late. At that point, why even say anything? If you're waiting for that, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like waiting to get on the merry-go-round or waiting to like get it jump rope, right? When you're, that rope is going, it's like at some point it's never going to be the right time, but sometimes you just got to go for it.
Yeah.
And hope that it's the right moment. Right. And I think that some people who don't have a voice end up criticizing those that decide to use their voice right then and there.
Agreed. I agree with that. And to add to it, everyone doesn't have the same voice. Everyone doesn't have the same way of expressing their voice, as it should be. Like, yeah, no, we need different ways. It's the same with teaching. Like, I can't teach a class of 30 the exact same way. There's going to be some who need me to like write it out. There's going to be some who need me to demonstrate it. Again, there's going to be some who need me to physically fix them. There's going to be some who need to take extra time. Like, there are different ways for us to get to this same point. Right. And I think that was also part of me feeling how I currently feel, because it's not done. So it's like, okay, so because that's not, so like you said, like, let's say they do have a voice. Just because what this person did to express theirs, that to my knowledge, we're all on the same side of this. We all Black in this conversation. Mm-hmm. And we have all expressed being on the same side, to take it even more direct. Because some folks be like, you can't, and I'd be the first one, but not monolithic. That's the thing. But usually we don't really want to get murdered. So I just make the general sweeping statement that we're on the same side.
Right.
So you're taking shots at somebody who has a different way of expressing the thing that we're all feeling. Mm-hmm. How does that benefit anyone?
Right.
And a question that was posed, and so I'll pose it to you, is, and then I'm going to tell you what I said, but I'm going to pose it to you the way it was posed to me, is, okay, well, what exactly is dancing at a time like that going to do for me? Like, what is that going to do? How's that going to solve anything?
Do for me as in like,
that individual person said that. They asked that question, that if they were at the protest or just their Blackness in general, what is it that that person who was doing the movement, what is that doing to help the cause? Is how I'm going to say that. Because I'm about to start throwing people's identifying factors out, and I'm trying not to.
I think that it... Well, here's the thing. It didn't have to do anything for that person. At that point, it could just be about the person who's doing the movement. Like,
oh my God.
And that is their voice. Whatever you do and whatever you decide to do in that moment, that's for you. But it's not necessarily that, like, my protest for something that we all agree on. Mm-hmm. Like, some people choose to give money. Some people choose to be out in the streets. Some people choose to try to educate people outside of our circle in order to then help, fix the narrative, right? Some people are calling their representatives. Some people are actually out there saying, you know what? I'm going to go out there and run for office because I want to be able to have a seat at the table when these things are happening. So all those many different voices and different ways of expressing that are all valid.
Thank you.
So that's my response.
Okay. Sir. Yes. Yeah. That was my response. And I'm just like, it ain't had nothing to do with you. Like, that could just legitimately be how they were processing it, how they were getting it out. It don't always have to be every time I speak up, it's for everybody. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I just need to get this out, and that helps me. And then I can be of service somewhere else. Because first of all, you can do multiple things to serve a cause. There's that. Mm-hmm. And then also, sometimes it can just be about you.
Right.
Like, sometimes I just need to process and be done. Yeah, like, everyone shouldn't be doing the same thing. Like, can you imagine me running for an office? Child. Raggedy. No, that ain't my lane. That's not it. But I will create work. Mm-hmm. I will engage in conversations with people outside of our circles. Mm-hmm. And when I'm teaching, I am making sure that I am trying to be as open, but as informative as possible for my students. Like, of course, trying to indoctrinate kids with, like, certain ways of believing things is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what I'm speaking of. But there are a lot of kids who don't know history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, let me clarify for you. These are some things that took place.
Mm-hmm.
This is why people are upset right now, because this thing is happening again.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that they have that information, they can make better decisions on how they want to interact with the situation, how they want to voice their thoughts and their concerns. And so I know my lanes. I smooth stay in those.
Mm-hmm.
Not running for nobody's anything. The same with like when we were talking before. I don't know if you're on there with me and Sandy, but like she gonna be the one writing somebody's curriculum. She gonna be a high up person,
right?
And I'm like, yes, support. Let me tell you what I'm not gonna do. None of that. I'm not doing that work.
Yeah.
No, it is not for me, and that's fine. Like it's really okay. But we're both working towards the same thing.
Yeah.
You might go through this door. I'm gonna go through that one, but we both going up in that house is what we're doing. So I was, as you can all hear by the tone of my voice, up in arms because I'm like, you're not about to talk about this guy like that. Like this is unnecessary. It's very much to me an example of respectability politics. And like, I just hate that whole, well, no, not right now. Like, no, there's a time and a place for that. And I'm like, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Because for us, for dance, removing other people, sure, I can say, you know what? Yes, there is a time and a place for me to protest through my choreography. I can create a new piece, present it somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have the same reach if I do that.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to that idea of if you keep waiting to speak up, then at some point it's gonna be like, well, hell, like may as well not even say nothing now because now it's like, we're so far in, this could have been avoided. And so if I just keep waiting until the perfect time, because even with putting on a piece, then you're still waiting for, okay, well, I have to get cleared to use the space. I have to like make sure my dancers are all going to be able to be there. Like I got to make sure I have all the costuming and stuff right. Like what music am I using? And now I am pushing it back. And if the thing just happened today, I'm not going to have this full piece up tonight.
Right.
That's not happening unless we're like doing a straight up site specific. We ready right now. We have this piece ready or we're improvising. Like it's just very unlikely that I'm going to, in the moment of something happening, be like, yes, I will create a piece. It will go up tonight for the masses to see. That's not going to happen.
Right.
And again, there's nothing wrong with creating a work and putting it up at a later date. But to say that that is
not the
only way, because doing it in the moment is not the right time, that's complete bullshit. Like I cannot sign on to that. Confrontation. So anyone who is not familiar with what crumping is, look it up. Google's your friend. Yeah. That wasn't nice. I don't care. I'm not going through a whole history currently in this moment. Yeah. But if you have seen examples, then you have seen that some of the movements can be viewed as being aggressive. And I'm like, I'll give you that. Cool. So the observation, this is what blew me. That observation was made that it was aggressive movement. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't see a problem, but cool. Maybe within 30 to 60 seconds, still within the same conversation, but the dialogue was around people like essentially just like wanting to like beat the shit out of like the cops or whoever it is that's like right there. Like you want to fight, but you also don't want to get shot.
Right.
So you're just like, oh, what do I do? And so I circled back and I was like, well, you see right there, I could get that out with a lower chance of getting shot. Because we gonna be real about that. The option is always there, apparently.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you have a chance to really physically express that same thing without fully coming into contact. So it 100%, even though they would try to spin it however they would spin it, but you would 100% be able to still have that quote unquote confrontation without physically connecting to that person.
Right.
So what's the problem? And then ain't nobody had no answer for me. And I'm like, oh, all right, y'all gonna stop talking about dancing, because what we not gonna do, because I will be up in arms. Like, I just need y'all to understand, like, this is what I do. Like, for y'all, it's just like, and I think that's part of what it is for them and people like them, is the arts are expendable. It's just for fun, for entertainment purposes. And I'm like, we do so much more.
Right.
All of us. Like, all the artists. Like, we do. And we've a part of, like, pretty much, at least here in the States. Can't really speak to anyone else. But anytime that there were major, like, shifts happening, the arts were always a part of it. Like, we be out here. And, how you interact with that as someone who consumes is different from someone who lives it. And I think, like, I'm still going to be up in arms. Like, I'm not going to say I should change that, because I don't think I should. But there is the fair point of acknowledging that they legitimately don't see the world the way we see it.
Right.
Which can be said, same thing can be said for if you have not lived a life of being Black and having those stereotypical oppressive things happen to you. Please catch all the sarcasm in that. But if you've lived that awesome life that somehow you just figured maybe you weren't, maybe you just had a tan, must be nice. But you can't really speak on someone else's experience because you didn't live that. You see the world differently. Same for those of us who have experienced it. What I've experienced is different from what you have. So I can gain understanding and learning because I care to, but at the same time, I can't speak for you because that's not the reality I've lived.
Right.
And that's a whole nother can of worms. And I'm like, there's a difference between speaking with someone and speaking for someone. And a lot of people be getting that messed up. It's been interesting. And I've just been seeing that, even like within the arts world, it's been interesting. Like over the past year that I'm like, there's a difference.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, I definitely, I agree. No, I think that people,
you're like, yes to this.
Yes to that. Especially to the perception of art and like what people outside of being an artist, kind of how they perceive it and what, if it's, not, along the lines of that, it's just entertainment too, that like it has to look a certain way, right? Like, so if it's not in a theater, on a stage, is it dance, right? And, also just to what you were saying about like, maybe that's a great way for that person to express their frustration, right? Without, really being physical and ending up, killed. So, kudos to him for being able to express himself that way without, without being, I guess, coming off as threatening to these officers and then end up being shot. So, I think that it's, you know, what is there's like a long quote that has like, if not now, when?
Yeah.
Um, you know, so I think that um, if the moment strikes and you need to speak up and you need to have that voice, no matter what, no matter how you choose to use it or in what regards you choose to use it, then, you know, that obviously is the right time. Um, and yeah, and with movement and dance, I think, you know, anytime could be the right time. You know what I mean? Like, I
Hmm.
think that that's one of the great things about the movement and expression is that, like, any you know, the fact that we march, right? The fact that we walk streets and we hold signs, you know, like that is movement, right? I mean, in protests, you know, we call it a movement, right? And it's
Mm.
like, you know, when you think about it in, I guess, you know, connotatively and denotatively, it's like, you know, we are all in motion for towards something, right? Um, and I think, you know, even in those crowds, in those protests, and that, you know, I mean, I you know, I'm a dancer, and he's like, oh, it's all movement and dance and everything, right? Like, we're you could really see all the movement of what people are doing. um but yeah, I think that it's all thinking, making me think of like some like dancing ideas. I'm like, I need to write some
Yes.
this
Jot
down.
those
This
down.
is, you know, Black History Month is next month.
Say a word.
We got a concert coming. So I'm
Say
like,
a word. But like that is
uh,
proving the point that we see this world differently.
yeah. I'm writing down words. I'm just like, protest, movement, motion. Oh my God, crumping. Um,
Yes. I'm here
but yeah,
for it.
no, if yeah, and I think it's just like, also makes me think of like the entitlement for someone to say, well, what is your crumping doing for me? It's almost like, what is your what is your what is the marching doing for me? What is the speaking doing for me? What is the
Hmm.
it's like, sometimes it's not about you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure some people probably thought like, all right, so what is Rosa Parks sitting on this bus and getting arrested? What is that doing for me? How is that
Hmm.
helping me? But little did they know,
Exactly.
it did everything.
Exactly.
And I think that sometimes small actions speaks volumes sometimes. And sometimes it's not an immediate like, oh my God, like this is what I mean, I just feel like there's been very few things that have created immediate change in this world, unless it was catastrophic. Unless it was a catastrophic event, does I think immediate change ends up happening, right? Like, we're
Hmm.
very much so. I always talk about um, a place of employment sometimes that is more reactionary than more like, let's plan for, you know, to prevent things from happening. Um, and, you know, I mean, some things that come to mind obviously is like, you know, unfortunately, like 9/11 was something that was so catastrophic that it brought about such immediate change to the way that we functioned in life and the way that we did things. Just like, you know, coronavirus will be something that will be so catastrophic that it definitely has immediately changed a lot of the
Yeah.
ways that we do things, right? Of course, all of those changes are to protect us, right? But, you know, there's so many other things that, like, this whole racial social justice tension that has been boiling in this country since its creation, really. It's like,
Yes.
you know, at some point it's going to burst, right? And then that's when it's going to change, even though throughout our history there have been people doing those tiny things, right? And I could say tiny, right? But doing these tiny things to, yet noteworthy, but tiny things to really try to bring about bring about that change, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about those things, those tiny things that those people did, sometimes they were in the moment.
Yeah.
They were things that were in the moment that, you know, Rosa Parks didn't go home that day and was like, I really, okay, on the third Tuesday of
Yes.
next month, I'm gonna get on that bus, but instead of sitting in the back, I'm gonna sit in the front.
Yes, plan it out.
Plan it out. She was like circling her calendar at home, like, yep, today's the day.
It happens today.
Happens today. No,
Can you
sometimes
imagine?
I know, right? I hope that's not how that happened.
Oh my
Like,
God.
Rosa, did you really plan that? She's like, yeah, I did.
I did. I
I
did.
did.
It was like, sis.
I'm gonna catch the number 3. And I'm gonna sit in the front of this bus. No, I don't think, I mean, maybe it was maybe premeditated, like, you know, as she was getting on the bus, or maybe, you know, right before, you know, maybe throughout the day, she was like, this is like, you know, who knows, right? But at any point, like, that was the time that she decided to do it, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I keep going to her because that's like the one example that I know off the top of my head now, that I'm like, you know, obviously that just seems like it was then in that moment where you're like, I just need to make that stand. And
Mm-hmm.
talking to Matthew, who's been on the show before, you know, he always has talked about or asked the question of when were you called when was a time that you were called to action, and what did you do?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like, I think that a lot of people should ask themselves that question and like really kind of evaluate what those calls to action were, and what did you do in that moment, right? Was it something that you just kind of ignored and said, oh, you know, maybe not today, or this is not my fight? And, you know, it makes me think about, there's another like saying where they were like, you know, they came after the Jews, but, you know, I didn't stand up for them. And then they came after women and I didn't stand up for them. And then they came after Black people and I didn't stand up for them. And then they came after me and there was no one left to stand up for me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, at some point you have to really make those call to actions, you know, I think when they happen, right?
Yeah.
And not all the time, you know. I'm not saying that, you know, obviously if your call to action is through like government participation, right? Like that, obviously you can't just go and say, I'm going to be this representative. No, that takes some planning, right? But there are moments where if the action can be done then, you should do it then. Going back to, if this person said,
Mm-hmm.
this crumping moment is going to be my call to action to show my anger through this movement,
Mm-hmm.
people should have been applauding
Yeah.
instead of being like, well, what are you doing? Why is that necessary?
Agreed. Wholeheartedly agreed. And I think it is just very much that, for me, it reads as how we deal with things is not appropriate.
Mm.
And I hate that.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, well then you're going to always say that what we do is not appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
I ordered the shirt. I think my shirt comes today. I might wear it next time. But I know you have to have seen it. It's a meme on someone else's shirt or something. But like like, we protest, y'all quiet. Like so basically, like, when we speak up, y'all be mad. That's what it is. We protest, y'all mad. That's the one I got. I didn't even get the. Like, yeah, y'all mad.
Yeah.
Like, we do marches, y'all mad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and no matter what we do, they be mad. But then we get murdered and no one says a thing. Right. Or it is, oh, but, well, if they would have done this, it wouldn't have happened. Like, use a whole ass lie.
Yeah.
And if there's anyone out there who genuinely believes that in the majority of cases that if they would have just been compliant, it wouldn't have happened.
Right.
Go trip on some stairs for me.
Yeah.
Just
Mm-hmm.
Take a little tumble. You ain't gotta die.
Like a little.
You ain't gotta die. Not wishing death on anyone.
Yeah.
I just need you to be scared. Like I just want you to feel bad about yourself because what? Like you really can't. Well, you know what? Actually, no, that falls in line then with what people really be thinking is that we're not compliant.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've been that angry Black woman so often that I'm like, cool, I'll show you what that can look like.
Right.
Let me demonstrate for you what this Black woman looks like when angry. It ain't cute. Yeah. But you want to keep saying it, I'm going to go ahead and show it to you. So that way, at least you're clear that the next time you want to say it, you know that ain't it.
Right.
But it's just so, it's like no matter what we do, it's just never good enough. And it's annoying. Mm-hmm. It's distressing. But I think at this point, I'm just more so annoyed / over it. Because I'm like, like I told someone on a completely different like Facebook post, I was like, I think I don't care anymore. And I was like, and I'm not saying that in the sense of I'm not going to keep fighting and that people should stop fighting. Like, I don't mean it like that. I was like, but honestly, I was like, within my lifetime, do I think this is really going to get better?
Right.
No. I was like, I have zero faith in humanity. I just don't. That's not to say we shouldn't still be pushing and striving. So please, no one misconstrue that. Yeah. However, I do stand by that sentiment that I'm like, do I think that by the time I'm old and on my deathbed, that is going to be like, oh, we've worked past all these things. No. No. Like, even if I live to be like 100, that's only like what? Math. It's like 60 something years.
Yeah.
60 something years ago, where were we? The 60s or 70s?
60 years ago, we were in the 70s. We were in the 70s. No, sorry, 60 years ago, we were in the 50s. Yeah,
can we look at how far we've come? Like, not saying there hasn't been progress, there definitely has.
Yeah.
But are we really past all these things? Not at all. No. So do I think we're going to be past them? No. I would love to believe that we will make even more progress, though, and that the pockets of people who insist upon being hateful and destructive to the well-being of just humanity in general will be much smaller, way easier to manage. But do I think it's going to be this utopia? Nope, not at all. And I mean, maybe it's pessimistic, but I'm also a pessimistic person, so kind of in character there. But yeah, I'm just like, I don't care. Still going to keep doing the things that need to be done. Still going to put in the work. But also, I think my not caring has more so to do with I don't want to hold conversations with people for real. I'm like, I'm going to just do the stuff that I can do. Because especially like with everything that happened at the Capitol, some people really are out here acting surprised. And I'm like, how, Sway? Like, you didn't think this was even a possibility? Right. Or my favorite, most hated thing ever is the people who are like, this is not us. This is not who we are, America. And I'm like, where you been?
Yeah, right.
This is our whole history, y'all. Like, this, it's been like this. It's just a different iteration each time. But we've been trash. Like, been trash. I was like, so I don't know why y'all surprised. That's where that sentence ends. I don't know why they surprised. Like, what? Yeah. Like, how? Like, be upset, I get. Be confused about some of it because I'm like, for real talk? Like, what was the plan? Like, cool. But to be surprised, I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think this was a thing that people would do? Because I always assume it's an option.
Right.
I just assume that. I'm like, nah, folks be crazy out here.
Yeah.
I just assume it's an option. But when you have perpetuated the storyline that only Black and brown people do these types of things and only Black and brown people are destructive and hateful and extremists, then I guess maybe in that instance, if I subscribe to that as reality, then I would be surprised. Mm-hmm. Because then if I'm now seeing that, oh, but white people too, mm-hmm. then I'm like, oh my God, who knew? And it's like, but the rest of us are over here like, where y'all been?
Right.
Y'all been on that. Mm-hmm. Y'all really have been like that as far as we've known in our histories. You've been that way. So we just be waiting for y'all to blow up and do something crazy. Like we just wait for it at this point.
Right.
But it's just been very mind-boggling. And so dealing with that, and then to have people make such a direct, to me, in my opinion, a direct attack on dance and how it serves the community and how it serves to
individual
get
people.
Us through. Yes. Like, I'm like, this is a lot. And so I'm like, I don't care no more. Like, forget everybody. I'm just going to keep doing what I can do. Because forget y'all.
Right.
But yes, that's all I had. I was very riled up this time around because I felt a type of way. I still clearly do. But it's okay. I'm working through it. I'm going to bring it up in my dance history class.
Yes.
Maybe by the time I get to that unit, I will have calmed down so I can just hold a reasonable conversation with the kids. Instead of like berating them like it was them who did it. So hopefully by that time I'll be in a calmer space. But this was still fresh. And I'm just like, y'all really out here being disrespectful.
Right.
I don't like it here. Yeah. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you all for joining us yet again here at Dance Talk Realness. Make sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe across all the places where you can find us. You have questions, comments, observations, anything you want to share, or if you would like to come on and be a guest because you're the expert in something, hint, hint, wink, wink, then hit us up, dancetalkofrealness@gmail.com. And we look forward to bringing y'all some fresh new content next week. We'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.